Welcome to Cold Brew Finance's end-of-week world currencies, stock markets and commodities deep dive for Thursday, July 3rd, 2025. Kicking things off, I'm Victoria Cashmore. In currency markets, the US dollar showed broad weakness. The greenback weakened to 0.8504 against the euro, hitting a new one-year low. Against sterling, it rose slightly to 0.7324, while versus the yen, it moved to 144.91. Recent performance shows the Swiss franc gaining significant ground against the dollar, with a month-to-date return of 0.22%. The Australian dollar has also strengthened, pushing the greenback down nearly 4% for the week. Looking at longer-term returns, the dollar's weakness is evident across major pairs. The 10-year annual rate of return against the euro stands at minus 0.56%, while against sterling it shows a modest 1.32% gain. Against regional currencies, the Canadian dollar strengthened as the greenback fell 0.42%. The offshore yuan saw the dollar break upward after 4 days of flat trading, while the Singapore dollar reached a new yearly high. Short-term performance shows the Canadian dollar maintaining strength with a minus 5.6% year-to-date return against the greenback. The Singapore dollar similarly shows resilience with a minus 6.6% year-to-date movement. In the decade-long view, the Indian rupee shows the most significant movement, with a 3% annual rate of return for the dollar. Against the Kiwi, the greenback's 10-year return stands at just 0.99%.
Looking at global stock market tracking ETFs, I'm Max Profit. Turkey leads with a 9.4% gain to 33.4. Israel achieved a new all-time high at 96.91. Brazil, Poland, and Spain all show very strong positive trends with gains over 3%. In weekly performance, Turkey shows the highest average daily return at 1.84%. Israel and Brazil lead year-to-date returns at 25.8% and 30.2% respectively. Poland stands out with a remarkable 57.3% year-to-date gain. Looking at longer-term performance, Poland shows impressive strength with a 31.1% three-year annual rate of return. Israel and Spain both demonstrate solid 10-year performance with positive annual returns, while Turkey shows weakness over the decade. Among underperformers, China dropped 1.4% to 54.72. Indonesia shows weakness with 3 consecutive down weeks. India, Australia, and Singapore all posted minimal gains under 0.3%. Weekly returns show China declining 1.48%, while Indonesia continues its downward trend with negative month-to-date returns. Despite current weakness, Singapore maintains an 18.4% year-to-date gain. Long-term analysis reveals Indonesia struggling with negative returns across all time frames. India shows resilience with a 12.2% three-year annual rate of return despite recent weakness. China and Singapore show minimal 10-year gains.
Considering commodities, I'm Liquidity. Gold futures continued its downward trend, closing at 3,342.90, marking its third consecutive weekly decline. Meanwhile, silver futures and copper futures both showed strength, rising 1.3% and 1.4% respectively. Aluminum maintained its positive momentum with 5 straight weekly gains. Short-term returns show mixed performance in metals. Silver and copper both posted weekly gains exceeding 1.3%, while gold registered a slight decline. Month to date, all metals are showing positive returns, with silver leading at 2.5%. Long-term performance in metals remains robust. Gold and silver both show impressive 10-year annual returns of 11% and 8.9% respectively. Palladium has struggled over 3 years with a negative annual rate of return of 16%. In energy futures, crude oil led gains with a 2.6% rise to 67, while Brent crude added 1.5% to reach 68.80. Natural gas moved contrary to the trend, declining 3.3% to 3.41. Monthly returns in energy show positive momentum, with Brent crude and crude oil both up around 3%. Heating oil has shown particular strength with a 4.1% month-to-date gain. Natural gas remains the outlier, down 1.3%. Long-term energy returns reveal challenges. Over 3 years, all major energy futures show negative annual returns ranging from -14% to -16%. The 10-year picture is marginally better, with heating oil leading with a modest 2.5% annual return. Livestock futures show divergent performance. Feeder cattle leads with strong 3-year returns of nearly 20% annually. Class 2I milk shows significant weakness, dropping 7.3% and experiencing strong downward volatility. Grains show mixed momentum with Oat Futures surging 10% and Soybean Futures gaining 3.2%. Rough rice moved against the trend, declining 3.1%. Wheat remains relatively flat after 3 days of sideways movement. In grain futures, Soybean Futures and Oat Futures showed notable strength, rising 3.2% and 10% respectively. Rough rice futures declined 3.1%, marking its second consecutive weekly decline. A strong negative trend persists in corn and wheat futures. Looking at 10-year performance, Oat Futures leads with a 52.8% total return. Rough rice shows a 21.8% gain, while corn, wheat, and soybean futures have remained relatively flat over the decade. In soft commodities, cocoa tumbled 10.3%, while orange juice fell 6.2%, hitting a new 1-year low. Coffee futures declined 5.2%, marking its 4th consecutive weekly decline. Sugar bucked the trend, rising 4.6%. Year-to-date performance shows significant weakness in orange juice, down 55.2%, and cocoa declining 30.6%. Sugar and coffee have fallen about 15% and 9% respectively, while cotton remains relatively unchanged. Over the past 3 years, cocoa has delivered remarkable returns of 257.7%. Coffee and orange juice show modest gains around 24–29%. Cotton and sugar have declined during this period.
And with that, we conclude another end-of-week World Currency, Markets and Commodities episode. I'm Victoria Cashmore, along with my AI co-hosts Max, Profit and Liquidity. Thanks for watching. Look for daily wrap-ups every day, just after 5 p.m. New York time. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. Cold Brew Finance is an experimental project with market reports written, narrated and delivered totally by AI, with market data kindly provided by financialmodelingprep.com. Always seek professional financial advice before making any investment decisions. Check into the channel daily for coverage of stocks, crypto, currency and commodities. Thanks for watching.